How you doing, Mark? Hope you're well. Yeah, nice evening we had. One of my friend's son had a bar mitzvah, which we were invited to, which was very nice. So I've turned the phone around on the Samsung just to give you a better picture. The new Nokia I don't usually use for the lives, so and what I'm doing at the moment is I'm drawing out the lines for a Canadian commission. How you doing, Robert? How you doing? I'm a little bit early, so it's 10 to 12, so 10 minutes early. Hey, Patrick. How you doing? It's not early. It's a little bit early. So I'm going to hopefully get on with this tomorrow. So, like I say, this is a Canadian commission. So I'm just drawing it out. The customer wants a flame grain, which this one has, but in order to get that, you need to get a plateau block. And plateau blocks, which are long enough for a Canadian, are not so easy to find. And it took me a while to go through all my blocks and to find. It's not a booklet; it's actually a box of cigars, which I'm going to open soon. So hopefully tomorrow I'm going to get cracking on that pipe. I think, Robert, you've got a Canadian of mine, haven't you? If I'm not mistaken. It will be 9mm, yeah. Yeah, so Canadians, ideally, you want to have a longer shank with a smaller tapered stem. If it was a saddle bit stem, it would be a lumberman, I guess you'd call it. But it's Canadian. And the customer wants it to be a little bit sizable. So we shall see how we go. 2 Canadians. Cool. Have you got one of mine which has got a partly carve blasted finish? Part smooth and part carve blasted? I remember there was one particular Canadian that I made which I absolutely adored, which was carve blasted, but the shank was part smooth and part carve blasted. It came out so cool, that pipe. I was envious of the person that bought it, to be honest. I don't remember if that was you, Robert, or not, or if yours was a smooth one with the blue stem. Right. Did that have a blue band on the shank as well? So I think this one will probably carve blast, right? Would I say I'm back to 100%? I would say probably virtually somewhere between 95 and 100%, maybe 98%. But I think I'm back, basically. Energy-wise, sometimes, you know, but generally speaking, I'm as good as it gets, I think. Anyway, so I haven't actually smoked anything since yesterday. I don't smoke on Saturdays until nightfall, and I usually wait until London Calling to have my first smoke. So I did a video on a cigar on Friday, which I uploaded this evening, and I still have a fair bit of that cigar left, so I was kind of thinking maybe I'll smoke that, but I wanted to actually open this package here. This is a sample box from Altadis, and this is a 10 cigar box which arrived today, and these are Toro sized, and it has a Casablanca cigar. It has 4 Romeo and Juliet cigars. These are all New World cigars. It has 3 Monte Cristos and 2 Casa de Garcia. So I'm very, very curious to try these. I want to try that white series, and I want to try that platinum series as well, but the white series was one of the first ever New World cigars I ever tried. I don't think I ever tried it again. I may have had 2 at the time when I first bought them. I think they came in a little sampler pack from Boswell's at the time. In those days, I used to buy cigars from Boswell's. I bought a shed load of cigars from Boswell's during my New World cigar, my first New Year's cigar journey, which is probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I spent about a year smoking New World cigars and hardly any Cuban cigars at all. I went through a phase where I was just completely fed up with the trashy construction of the Cuban cigars, even though I've been back on them since. The construction is a lot better than it used to be, I will say that. But at that point, literally, I was having, out of each handful of cigars, at least half of them were blocked or very, very tight. So I just, out of frustration, I said, that's it, I've had enough. And I went through a period of about a year, 18 months of smoking only New World cigars. Plus, I was having issues with tongue bite on my pipes, so I was hardly smoking a pipe. So I was really just, hey Jeff, so I was really just smoking New World cigars at the time. And I went through a lot. There was a time when I was, hi Dimple, there was a time when I was smoking 2 or 3 cigars a day. And, you know, decent sized cigars, that's a lot for me. By the way, Paul the Piper, he's been selling off a bunch of vintage pipes for very, very good prices. Have a look at his last video, his live that he had earlier today. I imagine it'll be up soon. If any of the pipes or the racks, if any of them are of interest, and if you read the comments and see if they've been sold or not, and even if you're not sure, just drop a message to Paul and ask him if that pipe's available. you know, why not help him out? He's trying to raise some funds to buy something for his mum. So head on over there. He's got pipe racks, vintage pipe racks, gorgeous ones, for £5 a piece. He's got pipes for £15 a piece, so definitely worth a look. So check him out. Hey Daniel. Hey Sharon. So that's the story behind this. Anyway, so the White Series was one of the first I ever smoked. Actually, I'm gonna have a quick look and see if I can find out if I ever did a video on it. I don't recall if I did a video on the White Series. Monte Cristo White Series. I did? Wow, I didn't realize it was such a long time ago. Wow. 6 years ago. Flipping Nora, how time flies. 6 years ago, I did a video on the White Series Vintage Connecticut. I don't know which one this one is. But I did one on the Vintage Series Connecticut, and I did one on the White Series Robusto, which this, I think, no, this is a Toro. It's a 6x50. I also got 4 ounces of Cool Hand Fluke. This is a vapor, and it was recommended by somebody on one of my videos. I can't remember who. So I'm really excited to open this. So I'm going to open this in a minute as well. I've got a jar ready. This was my Christmas cheer 2005 jar, and I sent the last of that to... Who recently did a box opening from me? Oh, that was Andy. Adam. A Pipe Wandering. Adam. The guy who came and met me at JJ Fox's. So, lovely fellow. Anyway, so that was one of the samples that I gave him in his little package. Let me find the link. There you go. That's the link to the video. Hey Oscar, how you doing? Alright, shall we get this open? Andrew, how you doing? Hey Jeremy. Oh. There we go. That's not 6 inches. Alright, so that's a lovely bunch of cigars. These are all made under the brand of Altadis. So we have, ouch, Casablanca, Dominican Republic. I think this is pretty much a sort of a bog standard, mild, easygoing anytime cigar. I've not smoked it before. Romeo and Juliet Star Crossed. Never heard of that. Romeo and Juliet Cabinet Selection. Not heard of that one either. Robert's got his guitar out, I think, with his spooky little girlfriend behind him, watching. Romeo y Julieta Maduro Reserva. Never read them. Never had one of them. Medallas de Oro 1975. I think that's similar to what I've been smoking recently, to be honest. Exhibition number 3. Monte Cristo Platinum series. That sounds interesting. That does sound interesting. I'm going to give this one a little bit of a whiff. That's got like a dry cocoa kind of aroma on the foot. Hang on, Daniel, give me a chance to get to you. And the white series, which is the one that I really want to, just really for sentimental value, because it was one of the first cigars I ever had, New World cigars. It's a bit similar, but not quite as aromatic. Well, not aromatic in the aromatic sense, but there's not as much aroma coming off it as the platinum. The platinum smells a bit richer. This one, the band, is very similar to the Cuban band, I must say. I'm assuming that's intentional. This is the what? Mild to medium. This is a fairly generic smelling, sort of sweet, fruity, earthy kind of note. This is Casa de Garcia Maduro. Come on. Don't play coy with me. Ooh. This has got a very, very savory, cardboardy kind of note. Reminds me of Burley. You never know, could be a great smoke. This is slightly more fruity than the other one, and this is the Connecticut blend. That one is the Maduro, this is Connecticut. There's a bit of a sort of traditional argument about whether to keep cigars in the cellophane or not. Some people say it's good for aging, some people say it's not. I think the most likely truth is that it is good for aging if it's set down for a long time. That's what I think. If you want to age something relatively quickly, I say relatively because aging takes time, but I find that if you put your cigars in a box of already aged cigars, that aged tang and the aromas transfer over. There's a lot of cross-transference between cross-contamination, but in a good way, between cigars. So I've got a couple of boxes in my humidor which I've got old singles, you know, limited editions, regional editions, cigars that I don't smoke very often because they're very special cigars that I've just got one cigar of. But the aroma in that box is just stunning. I've shown you that box many times. So if I've got a particular cigar that I want it to really get ready to smoke fairly quickly, I'll put it in that box. And I'll go back to it in a few months and it'll taste great. Whereas if I just leave it on its own, or if I have it in my Tupperware thing here, it'll be okay, but it won't age anywhere near as quickly. It's obviously not shortening time, it's not aging quicker, time is time, but the flavors that come across from the older cigars, I find enhances the flavor. That's a fair way of putting it. So that's this lot. Maybe we'll smoke one of those, we shall see. Let's put it out of the way for the moment. And the other thing we got is this cake. It feels like a cake of Cool Hand Fluke. It's 4 ounces of vapor. I don't need to wreck the bag. Come on. Come on. Come to Simon. Come to Simon. Thank you. Sometimes you just got to be a bit aggressive, you know? Ooh, it feels like that's straight in. Yeah, it is. It's not in anything else, this is it. There's a little bit of crystals in there. It feels quite moist actually. A little bit earthy. It's not fruity like you get sometimes with vapor. Hey there, Josh. I hope you're well. I haven't seen much of you lately. I hope you're doing well. I assume you're a busy man, as always. Amazing how much 4 ounces can compact down into a smaller sort of cake. I don't like to compact tobacco too much because it stifles it, but it's springing up, so it's all right. Good for you, man. I hope it pays well. Otherwise, what's the point? Cool. And Fluke 223. Vanilla roll cake. Well, I'm sure you could get that from Smoking Pipes. You should know. You got me one. Well, I think that vanilla roll cake will age pretty well. It's not, it's an aromatic, so I wouldn't necessarily age it for like years and years and years, because the flavors will change. I would say probably 7 to 10 years, the flavors will change. Maybe even after 5 years, but I would say 7 to 10 years, it will change. It may be changed to the better. I don't know. But if you want it to taste like it tastes now, you probably don't want to age it for much longer than that. Anyway, Daniel, you asked me before. Let me see. Hey, David, rockin'. Thank you, Paul. That's very generous of you to send me this Stanwell. Very generous indeed. One of your favourite cigars is Oliva V, and the second is H. Upmann and Banker. I think I might have had the H. Upmann and Banker once before. I might have a video on my channel, I'm not sure. The Oliva V Milano is one of my favourite cigars, New World cigars. One that's impressed me the most. Well, I have to say that the for the money, the Romeo and Juliet 1875 real cigars, those have impressed me a lot. After leaving them in the humidor for a little while after receiving them, they taste wonderful. Very, very nice cigar. Nice and sweet. So I highly recommend those. We'll see what these ones are like. But I think first, I'm going to try this tobacco out. I'm going to smoke it in my tadpole. Let's shed some light on that. My tadpole. Yeah, I would tend to agree. When it comes to vanilla roll cake, that's an aromatic which is hard to beat. It's good on so many levels. It's just really one of the best out there to my palate. Smoked this pipe 2 or 3 times. It's already got a decent cake on it. Just testament to the use of honey, I think. It's never served me wrong. So ordinarily, for a first smoke of a blend, I would do a first impressions. I'm going to smoke it now, and I could always do another impressions video. It just won't be a first impressions, that's all. Too kind. Apparently it's a vapor, yeah. I don't think I've tried plum cake either. I'm not sure who it's made by. It's made by John Patton, and it's manufactured by Four Noggins, apparently. So apparently this is four types of Virginias with 40% Perique. Wow. And apparently it's supposed to be smooth. %40 Perique is a huge amount of Perique in any blend. Most vapors will have somewhere between 7 and 12 or 15% Perique. 40% is a lot. It is quite smooth so far. Retrohead is nice and sweet, it's tangy and sweet. Tastes good. A vapor is a Virginia mixed with Perique. So VE is for Virginia, the VA is for Virginia, and PER is for Perique. Yes, this is the tadpole. This is my second tadpole. First one I sold, and the second one I kept. Hey Philip. Yeah, it's got some really nice grain on it. This side of it here is covered from all the way around there, all the way up the shank. I don't know if it's focusing for you or not. It's got a really nice bird's eye on it. And the other side too. Again, it's got cross grain going up. It's producing a nice white ash. I must be honest, for 40% Perique, I thought it would be more punchy. Maybe it will still get more so as I get down the bowl. And I guess this is a relatively new pipe, so it's not giving me the ultimate flavors, I guess. But it doesn't taste like a new pipe, I have to say. Tobacco tastes pretty faithful already, even though it's just had a few bowls run through it. There's no plateau on this one. I'm not sure what you mean by plateau. If you mean bird's eye, maybe. Yes, there is plenty of bird's eye, but there's no plateau on this one. This is a rounded all the way into the bowl, so there's no rim at all really. It's completely rounded. This was freehand shaped, this one. This wasn't shaped on the lathe. The only thing that was done on the lathe was that hole and that hole. Otherwise it was completely done by hand. It took me about 2 days to make this pipe, which is one of, a very long time for me. And I'm also very, very happy with the stem on this one as well. I don't know if you can notice, but obviously you've got the regular part of the stem, but beyond this ring here, you can see that this part is tapered in, and for me that's just something new. And just the whole stem is just, a kind of a progression into sort of a Danish kind of fancy kind of stem. They used to be called them fancy stems or whatever. And that's just it was a departure for me, and it came out really, really well. So I was very, very happy with the way this all turned out and decided to keep it. There are a couple of issues on it which kind of helped me with my decision to keep it. There's quite a bad pit up here which is irrelevant to the pipe, but it's cosmetic. But that was one point, and there are a few little spots. You can see over here a little black spot and another one over there, which again is completely cosmetic, and it wouldn't have stopped me selling the pipe, but I wanted the pipe anyway, so these few little blemishes kind of helped me just say, you know what, it's got some issues, I'll keep it. Yeah, hey Stamper. So tomorrow, all being well, I'll be working on a 9mm Canadian, which is a challenge, making a 9mm Canadian, because you obviously want to make the shank oval. The problem with it is that when you make it the shank flatter, you're getting nearer and nearer to the tenon, and you end up having right on the where's my Canadian? There it is. So if you have a look at the front of that shank, you look at this bit here, it's very, very thin over there and over there, because you're trying to flatten it, and because this is over 10mm, it ends up being very, very thin. I made it even thicker because I wanted to put a band on it, and if I'd have gone even thinner, the band would have just broken. It wouldn't have held in place. So I've got an acrylic band on there and a wood band on there, just to keep it from breaking and snapping. A lot of times what you have is when you have, in order to turn this down to get the bands on, the mortise, the outside of the mortise is very, very thin. So you've got to make a very, very good connection between the rings, the bands, and the briar of the mortise. Otherwise, when you put a stem in, or if it warms up too much, it just cracks. If you've got bands in there, it's not actually the end of the world, because it can't go anywhere, even if there is a hairline crack in there. I've received new pipes from other makers with cracks in the shank when you have a band, and I've done nothing about it. I haven't complained or anything like that, because in reality it's not going to go anywhere. It's all glued up, nothing can happen with it. But still, you obviously don't want to do that. You don't want to have a pipe with a cracked shank. But so it's important to get the connection between the band and the mortise really, really close. That way there's no expansion, it doesn't crack. But the challenge with the Canadian is obviously, as I said, is making it so that it doesn't get too thin on the top and the bottom. So that's all I've got to watch out for. So that's going to be my challenge tomorrow. Obviously, I'm going to make a new stem. So the stem, that's an Eldritch Amber Flame, yeah. So the stem, probably going to make out of this multicolored stuff. This one's got quite a bit of orange in it, which is nice. Orange, turquoise, blue, grey, mauves. It's got quite a few colours in there. So that should be nice. And I might do a shank band as well while I'm at it, with a briar band next to it. The amber flame will be affected. Well, I bought quite a lot of it. Well, I bought, I think, either 2 or 3 big rods. So I've certainly got a few stems that I can make out of it. Shouldn't be a problem. I don't use it so much, so you know, it's only if it's ordered on a commission, I think that I'll be using it, especially hearing that. Maybe I should get in touch with him and ask him if he's got any in stock, if they're not going to be made anymore. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I don't use it that much. Like I say, I only really use it on commissions. But I do have a lot of his stuff in stock. I've got a custom-made one which I made for Jeff a long while back, and at the time I ordered a whole bunch of that. I've got maybe 5 rods of that. I've got some of his grey back one, the smoke one. I've got blue and white, and I ordered also a custom blue and white one from him as well. And I've got a plain blue, a sky blue. I might have one of his metallic ones as well somewhere. So I've got a fair amount of his stuff. Well, if you've booked it for a commission, he won't sell it anyway, if that's all he's got. Yeah, I ordered them direct. I've only ever bought them from him direct. I gather then that he must be a part-time pipe maker. You've got to wait that long. I assume he's part-time. He does have distribution in the States. Rawcrafted sells his stuff. And I think Vermont Freehand probably also does. So you should be able to get it out in the States. Does he make pipes full-time? I actually don't know. Oh, I see what you mean, Phil. Okay. But their prices are okay. I've had a look on Rawcrafted site. There's really no great advantage to buying it here. By the time you've paid the postage to get it over from here, I don't think it's any more expensive. Maybe just Rawcrafted it could be. This tobacco is quite smooth. It is also, in some ways, quite strong. But I think I'm going to leave this in the jar now for a while and see what happens. It probably needs some resting time. But I would have thought it would be a lot punchier for a lot more of a fermented kind of flavour coming through for something which is 40% Perique. This is called Cool Hand Fluke, and it's a vapor which is 4 different types of Virginia and 40% Perique. So 60% of it is Virginia, 40% is Perique, which is about 3 times the amount you'd usually get in a vapor blend. Even more, actually. The average vapor's got somewhere between 7 and 10%, so 4 times as much. The customer wanted a flame grain, so you can see there that should have some really nice grain. Got nice grain on both sides. It won't have the longest shank in the world, because that's actually slanting down there, so it'll be a bit higher up, and I'll probably get it as far as that, so it's not going to be the longest shank in the world, but there's nothing I can do about that. And I'll probably put some bands on it so at least I can turn it narrower, so I'll get a little bit more out of it. We'll get it as long as we can, I guess. I think the flavours are not yet fully developed, because it is a bit muted for something like that, which has, you know, something. I'm kind of a bit dumbstruck that the blend would have 40% Perique. I expected it to be a lot more pungent, so I think maybe it needs a bit of time in the jar, a little bit more airtime perhaps. I will open the jar up from time to time. Next Saturday night, and maybe, I'm not even sure if I'm going to do a London calling. If I do, it'll be a shorter version, but next Sunday morning, all being well, will be Rome 2.0. So you guys may remember a few weeks ago I was supposed to go to Rome for a couple of days, and I was denied at the gate, at the boarding gate, due to a Brexit discrepancy on my passport. It hadn't run out, but there was a technicality, which meant that my wife and I had to go home. We left the house at 2:30 in the morning, on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, we were knocking on the door again. My kids had a jaw-dropping moment. They couldn't believe we were at the door. Sadly, we lost all that we spent because the hotel at the time, they offered us €100 discount on our next booking, but they were booked for these dates and we could only really go these dates. And the flights we had to rebook, and the flights were now closer to normal price. Not quite, they were still cheaper, but the previous ones were very cheap. So this time, instead of 2 days, we're going for 3 days. So we'll be there 3 days plus a fourth day until the evening when we're flying back. So 3.5 days. So at least we've got a little bit of a longer stay. I've never been to Rome. I've been to Venice. That's the only place in Italy that I've been. And we're right in the center of Rome, close to everything, to all of the sightseeing places. Thanks, David. Yeah, I hope so too. We'll repack everything. We didn't take any cabin, any checked-in baggage. We stuffed everything into just hand luggage. Not even hand luggage, just backpacks. So we each had one backpack. So we went very minimalist. We'll have to do that again. And we tried our luck. We tried our luck with the poor man's economy class, which is to book 2 seats and leave the middle seat empty and see if we get lucky and that nobody books that middle seat. Poor man's economy class. Not economy class, business class, sorry. I think that's a Bill Burr coined phrase. The poor man's business class. Trying to find out how to sell your wife and cat. Just tell you you've got a business meeting there, Andrew. You got away with England, didn't you? Little did she know that you were coming to smoke cigars. Oh, I almost forgot to show you. I haven't decided whether I'm keeping this or not. I've got the opportunity to keep this or to send it back. This is the new generation of Barling pipes. This is a Barling Trafalgar Fossil 1812. 1812 being when Barling was originally established. Got a little magnetic lip there, which is cool. Comes with a nod to the original Barlings and a little leaflet on how to smoke a pipe, which was very poorly written. They should have asked me to help them with the writing of that. It wouldn't surprise me if that was written in Italy or somewhere like that. I can't imagine this was made here in this country. But there's the pipe. Got some nice ring grain on this side. Got a smooth rim. And there's more like a bird's eye grain on this side. Then you've got some really good sort of laser etched, I think it's laser, Barling stamp on there. And then you've got a hammered silver band. It's a sterling silver band and a silver lion's head in the stem. I think the overall, what caught my eye was the sandblasting and also just the overall look. It's got quite a matte look to the sandblast, and then with the silver, I just think it's a very nice, classy look. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have got it. I'm not really buying pipes that much these days. I'm having a trouble enough selling my own pipes. I keep keeping them. The stem is, it's obviously a factory pipe, and so is the stem. It's a factory stem, and but it's quite comfortable. I haven't actually weighed it. It's 48 grams. That's pretty bang on. I think it's about £110, so it's not cheap, but it's not expensive. And I'm kind of captivated by this side. The grain on this side is just fantastic, and I really do like the matte kind of finish on it. Obviously the paint they're using, the stain that they're using, it's a deep, solid, but sort of like a satin finish rather than a glossy finish. So it's not completely matte, but it's kind of a satin kind of finish, and I really like it. You know what, Andrew, I think you're right. Because a lot of times I'll do that. I'll smoke in some pipes and then I'll just sell them because I've got too many pipes. You're absolutely right. You put it very well though. So anyway, so I've got to decide if I'm keeping this. Pinata Colors India ink. I've never heard of that. Pinata, is that a brand? Just take a photo of that so I'll look it up. Okay. Well, what I've been doing with blacks recently is copying what I've read about Bonord, how he used to finish the blacks. and he used to finish them with a lacquer, a shellac, but he would put a very thin coating on it. The idea of the shellac was not to give a glossy finish, it was just to seal it in. And he would put a very thin coat, and then he would dab it so there was no residue, there was nothing extra, there's no surplus lacquer on there at all, and it would be dry and ready within minutes because there was so little of it on there. And I've kind of been doing exactly that on the ones that I've used shellac, but I hardly use shellac anymore. I just carnauba wax. I try to keep everything to as minimal as possible, and although I used to always use shellac on a textured finish, whether it was a carve blast or a rustication, nowadays I try not to. A rustication, maybe I would still use it, and on some plateaus where I feel it needs it. But even the one that I just did, the pipe I just finished, where is it? I'm not sure what I've done with it now. So the one that I just did, that sold on Friday, I think it's in my drawer in the other room, and my kids are asleep in there anyway. So, but that one I didn't use any shellac at all. But thank you for sharing, Phil. I'm going to look that up. When I stain my pipe to get a contrasting, I don't usually use black, no. I use a dark brown. I don't like the way the black looks. If you were going to do a golden contrast with black and a sort of a yellow, orangey, yellow gold kind of contrast, then yes, people still use black, but I don't use black at all when it comes to smooth pipes. Very, very rarely, if at all. I can't remember the last time I used black on a smooth pipe. I use dark brown, multiple layers of dark brown, and that's what you end up with. You still get a nice contrast, and to be honest with you, what I've realized over time is that it's more about the briar than the stain. Every piece of briar has a different color tone to it. So you'll get the younger briar especially will be a lot whiter, and you'll get a fairly consistent finish. But when you've got medium aged to older aged briar, you get different grades of different shades of anywhere from sort of a very bright white beige color all the way down to a rusty red color almost. And depending on how old the briar is, that will kind of command how good the contrast is going to look. And the older the briar, the darker the briar, the less contrast you're going to get, because the briar is dark. So even the harder even the harder parts of the briar, which doesn't absorb the stain, so that would usually be your brighter contrasty briar, that will still be relatively dark because the briar itself is dark, if that makes any sense. One of the reasons why I don't like black is because with briar you get lots of, so sometimes like this one, okay, you've got a lot of bird's eye and that's great, but you get sometimes, if you're working on a straight grain for instance, or even on the cross grain, which is essentially a straight grain on its side, you get lots of little flecks in between the grain, little dots, little dashes, dots and dashes. And when you make those, when your contrast is black, often those will just look dirty. It'll make the briar look dirty, especially if the contrast is a very bright white briar. So then you end up having this kind of a dirty look. And I much prefer doing it brown, so that looks more natural. It looks more of a natural wood colour. Yeah, you do get that in bird's eye. I've got that on here as well. If you look closely enough, you do get the more dense eye, the right in the centre of the bird's eye, and that looks redder because it's more condensed. So if you look right at the heart of the bird's eye, I don't know if it's going to focus, but it's certainly darker. It sometimes can give a red kind of complexion. Definitely needs more time to rest and to age, and for the flavours to meld a little bit more. But I can see this being a very nice tobacco. I think I might be getting a little bit of a nicotine hit. With 40% Perique, I'm surprised that it didn't hit me till now. I caught the tail end of that, Andrew. I caught the last maybe half an hour or so of Joe Skoda's appearance on the Virtual Pipe Club. I'm probably going to watch it back again. It's always nice to see other people's workshops. And his bent pipes, yeah. I mean, I first got to know about him from Pipe and Tobacco magazine article they did about him, and they showed off some of his really nice saucer-shaped pipes, and the angles he gets by sort of angling the little bits, the bands that he makes. I don't know how he does that. That's just that's his thing. That's his expertise. It's very clever. But yeah, it would be awesome to own one of his pipes, but they're too expensive for me. But I was astounded when he said he made last year 27 pipes. I thought he was going to say a few hundred. He made 27 pipes, and he said that was a good year. But based on his price, I mean, his prices are beyond me, but they're still, for 27 pipes, he's not making that much money. I mean, he obviously does it as a hobby more than anything else. Can't imagine he does it for a living. Well, he's going to the up-and-coming pipe show. I'm not sure where it is. Andrew might know. But he said he's going to be at the next one. I don't know if it's the Vegas one or some other one. Muletown, maybe? Is that the same thing? I don't know. Briarworks in Tennessee. I sent a pipe off to Tennessee on Friday. Alright folks, I think that's me. Unless there's anybody else got anything in particular they want to ask. It's an early finish. I started about an hour ago, just over an hour ago, 10 to 12 I started. So if you've got anything that you want to ask me in particular, it doesn't have to be pipe related, it could be anything. Now's the time to do it. But otherwise, I will start to say my goodbyes. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Andrew Cirigliano. Thank you, Jeremy Viz. Thank you, David. Rocking steady. Stamper Tamper. Josh, Pet Grump, Patrick Grant, Hillbilly, Oscar Flores, and everybody else, thank you very much for joining. Much appreciated. New Faulty Towers. Ooh. Well, it'll be interesting to see, because the old Faulty Towers wasn't what you would call politically correct now, is it? My kids have seen Faulty Towers. We were talking about it just the other day, and my wife says, how old is he? So I said, he's got to be in his 80s, at least his 70s. John Cleese. I don't know if what's his name is still around, Prunella Scales. I don't know if she's still around. That was Sybil, his wife. And Andrew Sachs was Manuel Madrid. I don't know if Andrew Sachs is still around. I've got a feeling, I think he is, because there was a whole to-do about somebody taking the mickey out of him or his daughter or something like that, maybe a few years ago, but I don't know if he's still around. And the girl, I don't remember what her name was. I assume she's still around because she was younger. He's 83, wow. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know, because the whole point of that humor was the sarcasm and the kind of showing off how unpolitically correct he was. It was very similar to Alf Garnett. Alf Garnett was a complete racist bigot, but that was the whole point of the show. It was to show him up as a racist bigot. But the problem was that nowadays, with all the snowflakes out there, they won't be able to take all that ironic humor whilst it's being played out. Even if at the end of the show you say, well, that's all ironic, don't you get the joke? They'll say that doesn't matter. It's just, it's too racist, it's too prejudicial, it's too this, it's too that, and they won't be able to cope with it. So I think they would have to, she's 90, wow. Connie Booth, that's right, David, thank you. I think she was a great actress at the time, Connie Booth. And they all were, actually. They all did very, very well. £83 that was, or 86 or whatever it was. The Deaf Lady. Oh, there's some unbelievable stuff. Yeah, so I just don't know how that would work. So whoever's writing it, whoever's writing the comedy, I don't know what the central theme is going to be, you know, the style of the comedy. Because if it's going to be the same style, sort of a slapstick kind of, you know, the whole point of it was sort of taking the mickey out of Manuel and the fact that he was Spanish. Don't mention the war exactly. I mean, you couldn't do that kind of stuff anymore. People couldn't take it. People wouldn't tolerate it. He died. Okay, that's sad. Basil! It's a rat. It's a hamster. It's a rat. Oh man, you could go on forever. I could talk about British comedies for a long time, actually, but there was really nothing like it, and there isn't anything like it anymore. You know, there's there isn't a lot of comedy. I'm not talking about stand-up. I mean, even stand-up is being completely decimated with political correctness. But even if you set that aside, um, that type of sitcom, but the ironic, satirical kind of sitcom, just doesn't exist anymore, really. Not of that kind of quality. It was of its age, sure. Whether it could become of age again, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know if it would work anymore, because relationships are not traditional relationships that those were based around, just don't exist really anymore. The family sort of structure, it just, the way houses ran, just is not the same anymore. I mean, take I mean, even Alf Garnett, for instance, where the whole premise of that one is on Alf, who's an old, set in his ways, racist bigot. But in reality, you see he has a lot of affection for the black guy. I forget his name, and his wife or partner, wherever she was, who used to call Silly Moo all the time. He couldn't get away with that now. He just couldn't get away with it. Anywho, I'll say goodnight. Andy, thank you very much for joining. No, you can never do that now. No, just couldn't happen. And I wouldn't want that to happen either. There are some lines where you don't want to cross. But even setting, not going to that extreme, just the whole premise of these comedies were to take the mickey out of minorities, really, if you come to think about it, in one way or another, whether it was against women or against blacks or against Indians or against anybody that wasn't, in their opinion, the norm. That was what the comedy was based on. It was based around taking the mickey of other people. And that just couldn't work nowadays. Just couldn't happen. And for the most part, it probably shouldn't. Unless you could find a way of doing it whereby you immediately redeemed the previous sentence every single time. Because, as I say, people just couldn't cope, wouldn't tolerate a whole 30-minute program until they realised that actually the whole thing is ironic, And people, even knowing that it's ironic, still won't tolerate it. So, and I suppose there's an argument for that as well. Why do it? Why have that kind of ironic humour? I get that too. So, I don't know. Actually, I'll think about it. What I think might be quite funny is them remaking the original Fawlty Towers, but in a politically correct way, like deliberately overplaying the politically correct version. In other words, sort of dancing around the original sentences that they were using, the original script, but dancing around it and sort of walking on eggshells in order not to be racist or politically incorrect. I think that might be quite funny. But it would probably wear thin quite quickly after a few minutes, I think. I don't think you could do a whole series of that. Just wouldn't be funny anymore. Anyway, good night, gents, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for joining me. As I say, tomorrow hopefully we'll get this Canadian on the road. Good night, folks. Catch you on the next one.